Hey guys, Jonathan here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at every single LEGO Superman minifigure that has ever been made as of 2025. This was a lot of fun to put together, and I've got some of the rarest figures too, including both of the Comic-Con exclusive minifigures from 2012 and 2013. Now with that being said, you'll notice that there's Bizarro as well as Lex Luthor in here, and there are several characters who are not Clark Kent. Well, as we go through the video, I'll give you my rationalization as to why they're on this every Superman ever list, and with that being said, let's start breaking it down, starting at the very beginning in 2012. So we kick things off in the year 2012 with the Lex Luthor Superman mech battle set, and that set was pretty rad. It did give us our first ever Superman minifig. As you can see, he had pretty detailed back printing, which was pretty awesome, and the paper style cape. This exact figure also came with the first ever Superman hair curl piece, which would be used on and off throughout the rest of Superman's time, although not very recently for the Man of Steel. That being said, this same figure appeared in the NYCC promotional exclusive. It's the same figure, so the figure wasn't exclusive, just the packaging was, and it also appeared in a San Diego Comic-Con Action Comics #1 set. As you can see, you could flip the head around, and he doesn't have red eyes here, more just a determined smirk. The red eyes would appear not too long later. So right off the bat in 2012, we got our first variant, if you will, of Superman, and that is Bizarro. Now, of course, in the comics, Bizarro is an augmented, gone wrong clone of Superman, and so while he isn't technically Clark Kent, there will be a couple inclusions on this list that are not quite Superman, but are close enough that they need to be on the list. That being said, there are only 1,000 of these that were ever made, and it was a Comic-Con giveaway for San Diego Comic-Con 2012. As you can see, the print on here is identical from Superman, just with some color swaps. And then, of course, when we get to the front, you can see that we've got a pretty similar front torso as well, except with the S reversed and being covered by a Bizarro #1 name tag around his neck. We can also lift up the hair to see he had a double-sided head, which was pretty cool, with a big open mouth side on one side, and then, of course, a little bit more of a gritted teeth expression on the opposite side. This is one of 1,000 ever made, and as of the recording of this video, it's worth around $1,000 to $1,200. 2013 would give us the Man of Steel movie, which would also give us 3 LEGO sets based off the film. All 3 sets came with the exact Man of Steel Superman that you see here, which had a reversible head with the red eyes for the very first time, but reused that curl hairpiece from the previous year in 2012. We did get printed legs and printed hips on this figure, which was a really nice addition, and of course that very detailed torso was awesome too, and I think that this figure really represents the Henry Cavill look very well. That same year, 2013, at San Diego Comic-Con, we got a black suit Superman variant. This was one of only 350 that were ever made, and you're looking at a legitimate one here that I have from San Diego Comic-Con. This is one of the rarest minifigures in the entire LEGO Superheroes lineup, and one of the rarest in my collection. As you can see, it is a just slight recolor of the Man of Steel suit. Some details don't translate as well, like when you look at the hip here, the silver printing is a little blotchy compared to the actual minifig, but you have to consider that, these weren't made for mass production and were really just a very cool Comic-Con variant. As you saw with the head flipped around, it does have the red eyes, so really the only thing that's different here are the legs, the hip print, and the torso print, but considering there are only 350 of these in existence, this figure can go for anywhere from $5,000 to $6,500 in today's market. 2013 gave us a third Superman minifigure, and of all the years, this would be the tie for the year with the most Superman minifigs. This one is our first, and as of now, only Clark Kent minifigure. As you can see, he's dressed in his Daily Planet attire, but his tie is being ripped off, and you can see the Superman logo underneath. He's also got the glasses on, which look great, but no reverse expression and no printing on the back, which makes it kind of unique in that it's an exclusive minifig that only came with the Superheroes United DVD back in 2013, but he's not super detailed. That being said, he is one of the more expensive minifigures because a lot of people just didn't get this DVD or didn't know about it, and of course, who doesn't want Clark Kent in their LEGO DC collection, so it's become very rare and very desirable over the last decade plus. Now, 2014 was interesting because we got our first and only Duplo Superman this year. I unfortunately don't have this figure. Some people don't even count these as minifigures, but I figured for the record we might as well mention him here. On the complete other end of the spectrum, that year in 2014, we got a promotional cube at Target that came with Superboy. Now, while Superboy is not technically Superman, in the comics he does don the name of Superman at some various points, and so I do think he's close enough that he should count, because he has been Superman, and of course he does have that great logo printed on the t-shirt he's wearing here, which of course is complemented by those great dual molded arms with black sleeves and the tan underneath. These arms would be relatively rare for a few years until they started popping up again around 2016, 2017, and then they don't really use these arms for anything anymore. I don't even know if they're in production. That being said, the torso, hip print, leg print, and face print are all exclusive to this figure, making him incredibly rare and valuable on today's market. In fact, we could even flip his face around to see he's got red eyes here, which are really nice for adding expression. And again, this is one of the rarest, most valuable retail Superman minifigs ever put out. In 2016 and 2017, jumping ahead just a little bit, we would get some variations of the Superman from Batman vs. Superman as well as Justice League. Now, interestingly enough, the cheapest Batman vs. Superman set came with this version of Superman, and the most expensive Justice League set came with the exact same figure. The most expensive BVS set, which was like the Batcopter flyer thing, came with this version of Superman that had the dual molded legs with the red boots, which was quite nice. Beyond that, both figures are absolutely identical. I do realize that I have different capes on them, but in my mind, I don't count capes as a variation of figures ever because they're so easy to just switch out. And plus, even with Superman, sometimes the same figure will only be different by a cape, so I never count capes as entire figure variations, only if there's a unique part as far as like the head, torso, legs, or hair are concerned do I count a variant. Yes, some people might count capes as variants, but for me, just to keep things tidy, I really keep it to the main figure and its parts itself. 2016 gave us another version of Superman, this one using that classic torso that debuted in 2012, and this time he would have that head that we just saw on the other that has the big grin and the red eyes. Beyond that, it is identical to the other figures, so really this is just the 2012 figure with the updated head with the grin and red eyes. 2017 gave us a Mighty Micros set of Superman vs. Bizarro. I'm going to show them both together, A, for comparison, and B, because there's not really a ton to say about these guys. Mighty Micros was a short-lived sub-theme in the LEGO Superheroes banner, if you will, that gave us these short-legged, cartoonized versions of characters. This often gave us some very comic book accurate or comic book leaning torsos, so this was a great way to get like a Bizarro torso that wasn't the San Diego Comic-Con one, because most people won't own the Comic-Con one since there's only 1,000 of them out there, and so it is really nice to be able to have this version of the Bizarro, which also doesn't have that name tag hanging over the S, so really all you have to do is add tall blue legs to this to make it a minifigure accurate with your others without having to break the bank for the Comic-Con one and spend at least $1,000. That being said, there's not much to say about these. You know, they got the spongy capes, they're cool figures, but hardly my favorites, and the other thing is that, you know, they are kind of cartoony, so they do stick out a little bit from the other figures in your lineup. 2018 actually gave us 3 different versions of Superman, sort of. The first one here is pretty standard, right? It's got that Man of Steel Justice League style head and hair with the original Superman torso, so it didn't bring anything new to the table, but technically it was a new combination of parts. 2018 also gave us the LEGO Batman movie version of Superman, which gave us a brand new head that was only ever used on this figure. As you can see, he's got a big open mouth grin on one side, and then kind of an embarrassed face on the other, because of course this is from the Justice League party scene where Batman was not invited to hang out. And as mentioned earlier, we got 3 Superman figures in 2018, one of them being a GameStop exclusive Lex Luthor in his Superman outfit. Now, of course, this isn't Clark Kent, But in the comics, at one point, Lex Luthor made his own Superman armor suit based on Kryptonian technology while the superheroes were basically out of commission. So he did call himself Superman and wore the S crest. So while he might not count, I think we should mention him here. He uses the standard Lex Luthor Loki head that had been used for years and is still used, a spongy cape, and then of course we saw that detailed torso print on the back, but the print on the front that continues down to the hips and even the toes makes for a really great figure that is quite difficult to come by today. Although not super valuable, it is rare. I see it going up in value over time just because of how difficult it was to get back in the day, but it is a cool figure now nonetheless. In 2019, we got the LEGO DC collectible minifigure series, which would give us our final Clark Kent Superman from 2019 all the way until 2025, which is crazy. This suit was based off of his rebirth look from the comics, which is a really good interpretation to make the Superman suit look modern. I like the way that his muscles are shaded there, and of course getting just a little bit of leg printing was nice as well. We got the curl hairpiece as well as red eyes that are actually sunken in a little bit with some coloring and texture there. The spongy cape is alright, you guys know how I feel about spongy capes, and overall it is a really nice minifig to have been included in a CMF and gave us a Superman suit that we probably wouldn't have seen in minifigure form otherwise. In 2022, we got the Val Zad Superman, of course, the famous Superman from Earth 2, which is such a great minifigure all around. Of course, we've got the great hairpiece and head combo with an exclusive torso, hip print, leg print, and toe print, and even some great printing on the back of the torso. He's got a white cape that just has a single stud hole in it to, put on the neck piece, I suppose, but it's a really great figure, and I don't want to say he's an obscure character, because of course he's one of the more popular versions of Superman that ever existed, but at the same time, I don't know if he would ever find his way into a mainstream set, so that's, in my opinion, the perfect figure to include in a character encyclopedia. We get a really detailed figure with toe print, leg print, hip print, and a great torso front and back, but he comes in something that's for more die-hard collectors when it comes to like the books and things like that. So I love this figure, and honestly, the printing on it makes it one of my favorites in this entire lineup today. And finally, 3 years after Val Zad and 6 years after this DC CMF, we finally got another Superman. This came in the 2025 mech set, which looks really great. Of course, it's kind of a modern version of Superman with the yellow belt there, and if we just compare it to the 2012 side by side, you can see that there are just some very slight differences. We've still got like the red belt loops there. We got rid of the underoos on the modern one, and of course he now has a spongy cape that just has one hole, but he does have a brand new head, as you can see here, which we've got that expression on this side, and of course we can flip it around with the red eyes on the other side, and we've just got a great back print on the torso there as well. So overall, a really great figure, and awesome to have Superman back on store shelves in 2025 in the cheapest DC set of the year to date. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up the video now. Alright guys, thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe down below, and let me know how many of these LEGO Supermans you have in your collection, and which one you want the most.